The journey is conversations with ordinary people about stories of transformation and how we may have had setbacks in our life and how we persevered through those, how we've learned from those obstacles, and how they've maybe helped us on our path today. So, Alicia Neubauer, welcome to the journey. And just real quick, I'm just going to explain for yourself as well as the audience, is that the journey is about transformation. It is about the story of when we have setbacks in our life, when we have transformed through those setbacks, how we may have had opportunities in our life that didn't look like opportunities at the time, but somehow we may have failed forward because of those things. Life was going a certain way, and then we got knocked sideways, and so but before we jump into all that, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and what do you do for fun when you have the opportunity to have fun? What does Alicia do?
I like to giggle, snuggle.
Okay.
So actually, just this weekend, I was hanging out with a bunch of girls.
Okay.
We're all in our 30s and 40s, but we had a slumber party.
Okay, good.
Just hanging out with girlfriends and just enjoying the moment.
Okay.
Enjoying every moment. That's what I do for fun. Okay. I really, really enjoy meeting new people. I enjoy going places and being social. I enjoy meeting new people. I enjoy finding new connections.
Okay.
And seeing how... and just seeing how they are connected. Okay. I've lived in Rockford my entire life, except for college. I went to Washington University in St. Louis and came back. I was able to slide into a job immediately.
What did you study at Washington?
I have a major in architecture and a minor in Italian language.
Really?
And I studied abroad in Italy the summer after my freshman year.
Okay.
My parents did not have a lot of money, so I won a scholarship to go to WashU, or earned a scholarship rather. And because I was on scholarship, I was able to have reduced tuition to travel abroad. And then I think there was another $1,500 that I had to come up with. And my mom was like, "Good luck," and I did. And I think that was the thing. I would be presented challenges, and somehow I'd make it through. So I was able to contact the Italian American Society here in Rockford. They helped me to pay for a plane ticket to Italy. And then the Italian American Society of St. Louis, they were so ecstatic that my heritage is Sicilian.
Okay.
We can trace it as far back as like the 1400s. I have two cousins on both sides of the family, each side of the family, that have traced back our ancestry. So very, very poor farmers in Sicily and mining towns and whatnot. But they were so ecstatic that a native daughter was going back to study, they gave me both scholarships.
Oh, okay.
So I actually had like an extra $250 to spend.
Okay.
And so I was able to do it.
Sure.
I went to Washington University, which is probably one of the most expensive schools in the nation.
Yeah.
And I was able to get a good scholarship to go there, and I graduated in 3.5 years. I worked at Bradley & Bradley Architects the summer before I graduated. And I found out I was graduating early, and I called them up and I said, "Hey, can I come back?" And they were like, "Sure." So I just kind of slid right in.
Okay. All right.
And I didn't have to put together a portfolio, thank God.
Sure.
I didn't have to do a lot of interviews. And I remember that May, when other people of my class would come through from Notre Dame or from U of I or wherever, I already had the job.
Right. Okay.
So I've always been a planner, I suppose, and tried to set things up for myself and try and take success as much as I can.
Sure.
So I was like super, super active. I've always been super, super active.
Yeah, tell us about. Well, you guys, we'll tell first.
That's fine. Go wherever you want.
Sure. Yeah. First, I'm just curious about how did architect, and obviously now it makes a little bit more sense why you said Italian because of being Sicilian. But what the architect part? What drew you to architecture?
Okay. So this is kind of funny. I I stumbled upon it. I was deciding between environmental engineering, because I wanted to study water quality or soil quality.
Okay.
Or I was deciding between that or something to do with art and math, which I was really good at.
Okay.
So, excuse me. I exceeded in math in high school. I was always at the top of my class. I went to Boylan, but I had gone to gifted for a couple of years, and I feel like that really gave me an edge over everybody, because I feel like we were a couple of years ahead of the rest of the schools in middle school. So by the time I got to freshman year, I was kind of twiddling my thumbs. No offense at the teachers or anything like that. I was challenged a little bit, but not really fully challenged until junior or senior year.
Okay.
So where was I going with that? So, and then I was also in the art program, which was phenomenal at Boylan. Phenomenal Boylan Arts program. This is Mrs. Stockton, who's now teaching at Jefferson High, and Mrs. Pelly, who's now retired. They were both my teachers, and I still don't know how they were able to pull out of me what I was able to produce.
Sure.
Isn't that funny? Like, I didn't feel like I could do it myself, because I needed those guides to help me find it. But I was not the best artist, but I was a really good artist.
Well, I think that element, we've talked that many times on the show, is that having someone believe in us and see something that we may not have seen in ourselves, or kind of minimized or poo-pooed, and then they draw that out of us, is a pretty cool space to be.
Because I think it makes it okay.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that we're all worried that we are kind of full of, I don't know if I could swear.
Go ahead.
I think we're all worried that we're a little bit full of shit, you know, and full of ourselves. And we don't want to be pompous, you know, and you don't want to be suffering from hubris or anything like that. So
you don't want to look foolish, right?
You don't, right. So at this point now, I do accept compliments, and I will say thank you. But for a long time, it took a long time to get there.
Sure.
But I've always been very, very active.
Gotcha.
So I was working. I was in a very, very heavy arts program in high school, and I was an officer in the Heat Club. I started volunteering when I was very young.
Okay.
Came back from WashU, immediately joined the River District, and I became a secretary of the board at age 21.
Okay.
And since then, I've been active downtown, serving on multiple boards and doing good things, because I always want to make my community a better place. That's my drive.
Sure.
That's what I strive for. So I don't know if architecture was ever a really good fit for me.
Okay.
But I do enjoy relationships. So architecture talks about, you know, spatial relationships and such, and the spaces that people use. So in that space, in that aspect of architecture, I feel comfortable. So, like, one of my projects when I was working at Saavedra Gellhausen, I was the project manager for the Swedish American Regional Cancer Center years before I developed cancer. And I was so proud of that space, and so proud of our team, and I still am. And it's the most beautiful place that you would never want to be in. But there's so much that has been taken into account for survivors and for trauma. Just the use of space, the use of color, music, lighting, daylighting, access to natural light, access to good light. I'm glad you have better lighting in here, because I do notice those things. And those translate into more healing spaces for the patients and then also the staff. It puts everybody else at ease.
You know, one of the things that, just as you were talking about being someone who wants to make a difference in their community,
always,
and being an activist, right, and then architecture, right. Well, they do kind of go together, because it's wanting to make your community better without a plan, without doing it in a systemic or breaking down in ways that are not just for the immediate, but for the long-term benefit.
Exactly.
That takes planning.
It does. I mean, I'm a project manager, you know, and it takes long-term planning, and it takes long-term planning in terms of budgeting, in terms of space, in terms of trying to educate the client on what to spend, because, the architect's not actually spending their own money, right?
Right.
And the owner is very nervous about getting snowed, I suppose, or taken advantage of.
Sure.
But a good architect will always try and find the best possible solution for your budget, and not the easiest way necessarily.
Right. Now I know, and so you're 21 when you graduated from Washington, and that would have been
Maybe 20.
20. Okay, and what year was that?
It was December of 99.
Okay, so
No, I was 21 then. Yeah.
Okay, so December of 99, and so at that time period, the downtown area was.
We were quiet. It was pretty quiet.
Yeah,
lots of bars.
Yep.
Lots of shuttered spaces. Lots of, but we did do great planning. There was a lot of downtown task force, stakeholder involvement. The Gorman Hotel. I mean, I was walking on the roof of the Gorman Hotel before, when it was the Amrock in 2004, taking photos. Like Kyle Beavers, who's one of the founders of Friends of Zayach, has pictures of me, in that time period,
Sure.
walking along the skyline and just imagining what could be. So the seeds have been planted so very long ago.
Right.
But we've all been working towards, the downtown, I'd say, have been working towards what we have right now, which is a vibrant community that still depends on people.
Yeah.
But we do have a vibrant community.
Well, and it has with some obviously some strategic stakeholders, strategic businesses that are down there. Then that gave permission for the next wave. And,
Exactly. Yeah. Who was going to put themselves out there? Who was going to take the big risks?
Yeah. And now it definitely has become something that someone myself who's been in the Rockford area my entire life, and remember working at what used to be called the Metro Center, working down there in the 80s and the early 90s, and how much downtown has changed, and having gone through the difficult times.
Yeah.
So I know that your husband's name is?
My husband is Eric Neubauer. And he's a bilingual third grade teacher at Hillman Elementary School.
Okay.
And he also is an avid skateboarder.
Okay.
And that is why he finally agreed to start a business.
Okay. And what's the name of your business?
It is called Ground Floor Skateboards, and we're located in downtown Rockford at 333 East State Street, right next to Capri. And the thing is that I really wanted to open a business.
Okay.
And the local skate shop had closed, and I saw an opportunity because people kept asking my husband, when are you going to open the skate shop? Because he's a natural leader. And he said, I have a full-time job. I'm a teacher. I can't do that.
Sure.
And I thought, what if we did it together? Like, what if I could do it with you? What if I did all of the icky stuff, the math and not the math, but the books, the accounting and the finding the lease space and finding the lawyer and making sure all the deposits were correct and all of the things that are not fun in the business. You contact all the companies, figure out what you want to sell in the store. Like, this store is him.
Yeah.
He's made so many connections over the past 30 plus years that he's been skateboarding that it was logical, and it was not very difficult for him to contact dozens and dozens and dozens of companies, and then have dozens of companies contact us to be carried in our store, because he's the real deal.
Yeah, I was just going to say he's an actual skater. The actual skater. Yeah. So then he knows.
Yes.
And there's a level of integrity that comes when an actual skater owns a store, not someone. And nothing against it, but someone who's
somebody like me. I mean, I only know skateboarding through osmosis.
Yep. Yeah.
So
yeah, and I would be the same way. I don't know that. I don't really know the culture, and I know of the culture only from observation and limited interaction.
Right.
And I don't know what's good and what's not good and what's all those things. So.
But there's so much history, so much history. This person used to ride for this company, and that person started this company, and this company died, and then resurrected as that company, and he knows all the history.
Sure.
So yeah.
So with that, with Ground Floor has been in existence for how long?
So we just celebrated 4 years this month.
Okay.
We finally hired employees last year, and we're hiring a few more as my health kind of declines. We're still having fun.
Sure. I know that if I remember, watching the documentary "Minding the Gap," and I believe there was some footage that was done at your store, your store, which was great.
Yeah. Well, because in reality, all those skaters that were looking up to my husband, Bing's one of them. Yeah. He would get maybe a little upset at me saying this because he doesn't like to, be praised or whatever, but he is, he's a mentor to Bing. And oftentimes when Bing would come home for holidays, he would go and see his mom, and then he'd come and visit Eric, or pick up a skateboard or whatever, because he always wanted to support the shop, the local shop, because that's his hometown local shop. Yeah. And they've got a great relationship.
Nice. Well, and I think what I've heard, and I don't know, but very similar to individuals that are in the tattoo industry, and there'll be individuals that'll come, and while an artist is working, there'll be people who'll come down and talk to the artist, and they just kind of hang out at the studios or hang out at the shops, and I imagine that's pretty much the same way.
Well, unfortunately, the space that we have doesn't really allow for that.
Oh, okay.
So we've only got a really tiny footprint.
Oh, okay.
So there's a little bit of hanging out, but it's a little difficult because we've only got 500 square feet.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So there's some hanging out, but it's not like a large skate shop with video games and like people hanging out all over the place.
Sure, okay.
It would be more core skaters, good friends, hanging out.
Yeah. Well, and I think, to be honest with you, that's kind of what I've only been in your store a couple times. Okay. And every time I was there, it just happened to be, there were random times when I was there that I saw people who didn't look like they were patrons. They didn't look like they were buying anything. They looked like they were
they hanging out in the back or whatever?
But not necessarily, like they were there to hang out with the people that were working there, not necessarily to socially gather.
Well, and then, the thing is, too, that people would meet at the skate shop and then you go skate. Yeah. Go street skate. So it's a point in it's a placeholder. Yeah. It's a place to meet. Yeah. It's a meetup spot before you go on.
So, well, very cool that you guys,
it's very cool that he said yes.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Because I couldn't do it without him at all.
Yeah. And I think that's what I'm trying to say.
No, be blunt. It's fine.
Yeah, that he was willing to say yes.
Yeah. So, and this all came about because, the recession hit Rockford, and it hit people, clients that wanted to spend money on their buildings and didn't have the money anymore. So that affects the construction companies, and the construction companies often will tell clients, well, you don't need an architect for this. I can help you with that. And they can, but they might not always make the best decisions. Sure. But oftentimes architects would get cut out of the picture. So we were facing lots of layoffs. We as architects in Rockford, lots of layoffs, lots of downtime, lots of cut pay. And then in the meantime, I know that the partners that I was working with, Svedra Gelhausen, I know that if it had been other times, I think that they would have groomed me to be the partner that they had told me that they wanted me to be. But there was not enough business. There was not enough money at the moment. And I thought, I don't want to be stagnant anymore. Right. I want to challenge myself in a different way. And if I am facing cut pay then I want to do something on my own.
Sure. Yeah.
So let's start this business.
There you go.
And we did. 2015, I contacted a lawyer to incorporate. In October of 2015, by December, we found a location. Karen Ellier at Minglewood, she said, hey, RU's a wonderful landlord. You should talk to them. Maybe consider this underground spot. You know, it's like it's a lower level spot with windows that are just above the sidewalk. So it's kind of out of the way and
Sure.
A little bit hidden. Which is nice because we don't get random people walking through.
Right.
And then we opened in March of 2016. It was boom, boom, boom.
Okay.
Because when I set my mind to something,
Sure.
then I can usually pull it off.
Yeah. Well, and again, it goes back to the planning, which you have to do as an architect.
Yes.
And I know for me, when I opened up KP, it went from an idea to creating a business plan, which I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah.
But there were certain.
I still don't know business plans. I'm not going to lie.
But there were certain milestones that were accomplished, so that when the emotional part wore off, it was too late. I had
the passion,
yeah,
the emotional part.
You know that when that wears off, now the plan's far enough into play that it's too hard to back out, right?
Right.
And if I would have just relied on emotion, I may never started it.
Yeah, no, you can't do that. That's terrifying.
Well, it's terrifying. I think that for some people, I think they start off just on that emotion,
okay,
and then recognize that they're far enough out and they don't have a plan. Then it gets terrifying.
Oh, okay.
You know, and for me, I had such a strong fear of failing at doing something I didn't know what I was doing. That's why I put a plan in place.
Okay.
You know, that actually helped calm me. That I just have to do these steps and follow the plan. And
so my husband's very much a realist, you know, and we're very. I think we both are. Like, we understand reality and consequences, and things aren't always rosy, you know, and kind of plan that way. Plan for problems in the future as well.
Sure.
So I feel like because of that, and because of the fact that he's a full-time teacher, the business takes care of itself, and we don't depend on the business.
Right.
So if we don't have to depend on the business for our livelihood, then there's so much pressure that's taken off.
Yeah, and you can then sometimes act boldly about things
and have fun still.
Yeah.
Because that was the thing. Eric was really nervous that if we started this business, it wouldn't be fun skating wouldn't be fun anymore. So I think he still has that joy.
Yeah. There was something I was going over some things over the weekend, knowing that we were going to talk today, and I had forgot that a little over a year ago, about 14, 15 months ago, a little bit longer than that, you had contacted me to be involved with the Warp Project.
Oh, okay, yeah, that was the Screw City Uprising.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And had a huge event in January.
Yeah, and so that came about because Will Crandall came to me and he was like, hey, I have this idea, can you help me?
Yeah, and Will has been on the show.
Yeah,
and he's told a story here.
Yeah,
and now I think he's still at Rosecrans.
No, he's working for Swedish American now.
Oh yes. Yeah, he did mention that he started at Rosecrans and then went to Swedes.
Yeah, he's helping to deal with addictions in the emergency room.
Okay. Well, good for him. I could see that would be a good fit for him.
Yeah.
And so that event was as Will had spent some time, talking with me about what he wanted to do and what he envisioned. Now, of course, he had envisions of wanting to do even more than just that single event.
Yeah, it would be nice to have a permanent skate park.
Yes,
but that requires money.
And major commitment investment on people's parts.
Yeah.
And so
mostly money.
Yeah.
That's why we haven't done it yet.
Yeah. And so, but that event was what appeared to be a success. I know it
was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I was with Diane and my family were there, and we did I think I talked for a little bit there, but we had some other But it was a very cool event, having the combination of artists as well as the musicians as well as skaters to be there. So
Yeah, it was great.
It was a lot of fun. And if I remember, the core reason was not only to have a gathering place that was sober, but also to raise awareness about mental health, raise awareness about substance abuse,
and also lack of indoor skate parks in Rockford.
Yes,
because it was a pop-up skate park.
Yeah.
That everybody loved, and then I had to go away.
Yeah. And it was pretty wild how everyone had come together for that event.
Yeah.
So I know that you and Eric have children.
We have 2 boys.
And how old are they?
So Sammy is 11 and Johnny is 9.
Okay, and where do they go to school?
So Sam's at Lincoln Middle School, which I'm so excited about because the United Way has put a lot of focus on the 6th graders at Lincoln Middle School, and he just happens to be in that class.
Sure, yeah.
So he's really blossoming with his social life and with his teachers and stuff. The academics, he's having a little problem with, just in terms of managing his time and managing things, because now that he's in middle school, he doesn't have a teacher remind him to do his homework or to turn his work. So he ran into a little problem with that, but we're working through it.
Okay.
And then our Johnny, he's at Johnson Elementary School.
Oh, okay.
And the best way to describe him is effervescent, I'd say.
Okay.
Sammy's quite sensitive. Johnny is jolly.
Okay.
And they're both very, very sweet boys.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, good. So what are they into? What do they like to do? What do they enjoy doing?
Well, they love Legos.
Okay.
As I left this morning, they were playing with Legos, and it was a combination of Legos and like Matchbox cars.
Oh, sure.
So they're pretty creative. We really tried to limit screens, just in terms of iPads and video games and so forth for them for as long as possible.
Sure, yeah.
They still watch TV like PBS when they were little. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah,
I mean, I wasn't a perfect mom or anything like that. Not that a perfect mom doesn't allow their children to watch TV, but they're really creative.
Yeah.
So when the video games get taken away, there's almost never a time that I can't ever remember a time that Sam's ever come to me and said, I'm bored. And John, he won't ever say it, but usually with a little nudging, he'll find something to do. So they and their father, they do taekwondo.
Okay.
They're pursuing their black belts, and they've been doing that for a little over 4 years. We started that just before the business too. Okay. And I used to go to the dojo when I was healthy. I went to the Ultimate Body Shaping Challenge class. You have to say it that way because it's more cool.
Yeah.
But it was a high intensity workout for a half hour twice a week.
Okay.
With the taekwondo instructor. So that was pretty awesome. And then they love to play outside and play zombie tag or whatever that is, and bike and play baseball and skateboard and they're neighborhood kids who we chose our home based on the neighborhood, based on the home. It was a beautiful home. But we're very happy that the children all play together outside.
Oh, nice.
It's so important to have that free play.
Yeah.
And we're right across the street is a church parking lot that has a playground.
Okay.
And that's the meetup spot.
Okay.
Which is perfect for little boys and girls to like hang out and get a little bit away from their parents, but I still know where they are, and they can have a little bit of autonomy to do whatever it is that kids do without me being a helicopter-packed parent.
Yeah. Well, and that I think that is because I grew up until 4th grade in the Rockford area.
Okay.
So there was a natural boundaries in which I had to stay within.
Yes.
The block or the whatever it may have been.
Yeah.
And I remember being able to do that. And then when I moved out to McChesney, we moved into a new subdivision, and it wasn't the same. same as far as neighborhood kids. And so,
Did they not play outside?
Actually, in my case, kids who were younger than me played outside, and then there was boys that were much older than me. I just happened to fall in that middle, and so it was then I spent probably the next 3 or 4 years, 3 years for sure, just a lot of alone time exploring because it was an undeveloped subdivision.
Oh, so was there like a creek and a...
There was a creek that came from Rock
So
Cut.
much fun.
So I could follow the creek all the way up to through the horse pastures all the way back up to Rock Cut. So the neighborhood was much bigger then because there wasn't the same boundaries.
Okay.
But it was different where you wouldn't necessarily ever think you could just explore.
I grew up in a subdivision on the far northwest side, and so across the street was cornfields, and then beyond that was a rock quarry and a trees forest, and then there was a lake and the pond and so it's out by Lakewood Hills, Tulloch's Woods, that area.
Yeah.
My subdivision didn't have a name. It was Shoshone Trail. I think it was like the last subdivision that they built, but they didn't really extend it.
Sure.
And they didn't give us a pretty sign. And that's fine. Everybody else got a sign. But it was so much fun to ride our bikes and a mile or whatever. And I remember my brother and sister were bold enough to go on Kilburn and go up to the dairy fair, but I was never that bold. And I was never that strong either. I was kind of a sickly child. I developed asthma and allergies, allergy-induced asthma at a very young age. I had pneumonia really bad when I was 8.
Oh, okay.
And my parents smoked. And I didn't get away from that until I was like 18.
Okay.
So I would take a nebulizer often, and when I would have days that I couldn't breathe, then I would have to stay at home. So I read a lot and probably doodled a little bit and researched a lot in encyclopedias. I'm a nerd. I mean, I would read the encyclopedia.
Yeah, I'm with you.
1986 World Book Encyclopedia.
Yeah.
Like it's a great series.
Yeah, I did this. I loved history, so I would.
When you were bored and by yourself.
Oh yeah. Well, these were my favorite books. They were National Geographic Lifetime books, and they were all these different history. And I was very much into Native Americans, and so I was researching.
And that would help you in your explorations of the creek, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And I thought I was. So that's why there was all these storylines in my imagination as I went exploring. So, So you were talking a little bit about having sicknesses growing up, and I know you're going through that now, and going through that again, but obviously a little bit different. You were diagnosed with cancer.
So I was diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer in July of 2017.
Okay.
Triple negative means that it is the absence of the cancer is not fed on certain things. And so it is not attracted to estrogen, it's not attracted to progesterone, and it's not attracted to HER2. And these are qualities in other breast cancers. I think that only 15% of breast cancers are triple negative. I don't remember my statistics very well. But most breast cancers respond to some kind of a treatment because you can suppress the estrogen, or you can suppress the HER2, or you can suppress the progesterone. You can suppress whatever's feeding the cancer. But triple negative don't care.
Okay.
So one of my doctors had described it in a very interesting way, I thought. He said, if you think about a cell, and you think about a castle and a moat, okay, so there's the moat around the castle, and there are 3 gates. One is progesterone, one's estrogen, and one is HER2. So there's no way to get in there because you don't have the key to the gate.
Okay.
So instead, what they do is they blast you with as much chemo as possible.
Which has all the side effects.
Yeah, so I lost my hair, I lost my energy, I lost my eyebrows, I lost my eyelashes. I endured 5 months of very heavy chemo.
Okay.
With the support of so many.
Yeah.
Because I've always been active, and I knew it would be shocking. So I reached out to people ahead of time and brought them through the process with me.
Okay.
Because I didn't have a guidebook.
Sure. Oh, wow.
And I didn't really have a peer until I discovered them later. But I didn't really... I wanted other people to know what it's like to have cancer. I wanted other people to know what it's like to be the person next to the person with cancer.
Okay.
Because even before I was diagnosed, my best friend in college was diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer 2 years prior.
Okay.
And she died last October.
Okay.
She's the only friend I've actually lost, just in terms of friendship, because we both dealt with our cancer in different ways. She was very private, and I live out loud.
Okay.
So I made a joke that offended her, and she could never forgive me.
Okay.
But there's only one friend.
Yeah.
You know, everybody else supported me.
Yeah. When you talked about wanting people to know what it was like to have cancer and to live with cancer,
Yeah.
what's it like?
What's it like? Okay, so...
First the diagnosis, and then living with it.
So... which part?
You tell me.
Right, I mean today or then? You said first the diagnosis. So first the diagnosis, it was go time. Like I was in go mode.
Okay.
Let's get this out of me.
Okay.
You know, we're going to beat this. I'm very young and healthy. I was in the best shape of my damn life.
Okay.
You know, I was working out at the dojo twice a week. I was doing push-ups and burpees. I was strong. I was fit. My husband and I are vegetarians. We're plant-based diets, or we eat plant-based diets because it feels good. It feels better. And, you know, we look at food as fuel, and we look at energy as, or exercise as an extension of helping our bodies and so forth. All of it is all of it comes back to just health.
Yeah.
Every decision that we make in terms of sleeping and eating and exercise,
Sure.
you know,
Okay.
is it good for my health or not? And so that was where I was when I first was diagnosed, and I thought, well, hell, if anybody can do this, I can. And I remember my mother being devastated and her saying, I wish I could do this instead of you. And I thought, and I told her, because I'm not very good at filtering, I said to her, you can't do this. I'm uniquely able to handle this, maybe, and you would not be able to handle this. I mean, just be blunt about it.
Yeah.
It's difficult. It's hard.
Yeah.
My body. I mean, I'm in pain constantly.
And this is your journey, right?
This is my journey, not hers. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And we understand when people say that, because it's the other side, right? Is watching. I know when I had my accident a few years ago, I was grateful that it was me, not my son, because he was with me when I had the accident out in Colorado. I wouldn't have wanted to be me if it was him that had the accident.
Yeah.
I would have much rather have been me who had the accident. And because and maybe there's a selfishness about that.
I don't know, or maybe it's just you're trying to protect them.
No, I'm thinking I was protecting myself. I would not have wanted to feel powerless and not be able to help him.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. Oh, yeah, I can't imagine. And I guess I didn't fully understand that, I suppose, until I became metastatic. Metastatic breast cancer means that the cancer spread to distant parts of my body.
Okay.
And it's in my bones, it's in my liver, it's in my adrenal gland, it's on my skin, it's in my scalp. It will kill me.
With your husband,
Yeah.
obviously one on your support team,
Yeah.
how's his response been?
Well, I would defer to him. I would never want to speak for him. But he has done everything he could to support me. Often it comes down to, he always looks at healthy foods to prepare. As I go through different drug treatments, sometimes, like the previous drug treatment that I was on, acted very strangely on food. So he changed our diet to try and help me choose more high-fat, low-carb options. He would pick up the slack in what I can't do. He takes care of our dogs and our kids and the house and the business. Yeah, he does so much.
Yeah. What things have you? I know this is a difficult, not a difficult question, but it's maybe a deeper question. So feel free to kind of just play around with it. What things have you learned about you and about life that you wouldn't have learned if you wouldn't have had cancer?
Okay, so I mentioned before about me being crazy busy. I can't be busy anymore.
Okay.
I'm forced to sit down. I'm forced to lay down. I'm forced to be still. I'm forced to think. When I was diagnosed with cancer, I was serving on 6 boards, and I was working 2 jobs. So I was still working as an architect at Saavedra Galhausen. I was running Classroom Building 1 at Rock Valley College, which I'm very proud of. That project, that was my only project because I had gone to half days. We planned the Women's March in 8 days. In 8 days, we planned the Women's March, Rockford, and so me and a couple of downtown business owners, women business owners, planned the event in 8 days. My friend Kate Worth called me up and she said, "Do you think we can do this?" And I said, "Let me make a few phone calls." And we thought 50 people would show up, and 1,200 did. And I haven't really been able to let go of that baby yet, that Women's March Rockford, because it was built to empower women. It was built to be a resource to highlight all of the different ways that we can support each other and do social justice. And it's really evolved. So I can't quite let that go, even though I maybe should. I was working as an alum advisor at WashU. I serve on the Zoning Board of Appeals and the Liquor Tobacco Advisory Code. I was appointed to that 12 years ago. And Trinity Daycare Board, Jeremiah Development, I was the president. Did a lot. Okay, so...
Some of those had to start going.
Yeah, so... so I had to quit. I quit many of the boards. There's still a few that I still serve on, although I probably should cut back even more. But I never found the time to ever reflect.
Yeah.
I was always busy.
Yeah.
And I remember my husband telling me, being busy doesn't mean that you're being productive or something to that end. You know, just because you're busy doesn't mean that you're... I was missing so much, and I think that he was trying to help me and trying to point it out to me, but there's really, the only way that you can figure that out is for yourself.
Right.
So when I was forced to lie on my back because I was exhausted or in pain, then I could finally reflect on what I have been doing and the connections that I have made and the things that we are doing and how they affect each other. And I was able to see many patterns in my life emerge. I've been an activist my entire damn life. And I've been a social person my entire life. And I really do enjoy connecting people and connecting ideas. And the universe just keeps circling back to me, I feel like, in terms of different ways to, I don't even know where I'm going with this, but I never realized my impact. I didn't know what I didn't know what I could do. I didn't know my power.
Yeah.
I didn't know my effects. I didn't know. I realized that a lot of people liked me.
Sure.
And there was a lot of love and support coming my way, but I didn't know that it was certain qualities about me that were unique and beautiful and wonderful, and that others were celebrating. I didn't know because I was too busy doing.
I think that's the downside of being busy or relying on work. Not work like employment, but working.
Yeah.
Right? That we think that it has to do with our work. We think it has to do with our performance and performing, not on the light, not on...
Or the unicorn power.
Or yes, the...
I don't know what... I couldn't identify it, so I just called it unicorn power.
Right. And I refer to that unicorn power, I refer to it as the light that's coming out, right?
Yeah, and it's the same thing,
that people are attracted to, and you don't even...
I can't explain it.
Yeah, and if you don't still yourself and slow down, you then default and think it has to do with performance and working and doing and being busy. And then you don't...
And so you just keep doing more of it.
Yeah, and you don't know what to say no to.
No, you don't know what to say no to.
So...
Until your body tells you can't.
Right, and so that's one of the gifts.
Yeah, it's definitely a gift for... of having cancer.
Yeah, and so it's been a depth of those relationships, a depth of seeing who's in the mirror. Mm-hmm. It was interesting, even on the way here today, right? I believed you were coming at a certain time. You believed you were late. So I was just staying at the door just being courteous, not because I was pacing because you were late. The whole time, in my mind, you were fine.
I know, and I was just... Okay, I'm 15 minutes late again.
Yeah, and
story of my life.
And for me, you were right on time.
Yeah,
because I had it in my mind when you were going to be here at a certain time period, and I wonder how many times in our life that shift in perception, it can be so all-consuming. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So, because it brings negativity instead of positivity.
Yeah. So, with that idea that there's one element that happens, I think, a lot of times with cancer, is that we're going to fight this and we're going to take care of it and we're going to...
I don't use the word fight anymore.
But one time you did.
I did.
And so you don't use the fight. Tell me why.
Because there's winners and losers. I'm not a loser.
Okay. That's true, you're not.
I'm not a loser.
That's true.
So, I don't want people to say that I lost my fight with cancer.
Yeah.
I want them to say that cancer stole my life.
Okay.
Because it did. It will.
That part, right, that element of physically, it will take your life.
Yeah.
Right, because of the nature of it.
Yeah. Oh. Go ahead.
But with all the stories you've already told us, but there's going to be there's a lot more that Alicia's leaving.
Yeah, I think
living through.
And I think that I am happy with my present, and I live in my present. And it's funny because I was hanging out with my girlfriends and we did tarot cards, and excuse me, one of the cards that I pulled for present was the Fool, which means that, I'm exactly where I need to be right now, and I'm content with my life at this moment in terms of the relationships that I've made, and I am proud of what I've done, and I am happy with the unicorn power that I have and the way that I've touched other lives and inspiring people. And I've come to this realization, only within the last year or two, maybe the last 6 months, maybe the last few months, and it will be stolen from me now. I'm finally at that point that my husband was encouraging me to be at. And then it'll get stolen from me, probably at some point this year, because my cancer is very aggressive and it's not responding to treatment. There's other treatments I could try, but how much do I want to endure? Because I don't think I can lose my hair again.
Well, you've now experienced the gift of stillness and the gift of and the quality of that, and so that means it's embracing the depths of those relationships, right? And the depths of those experiences, like you had over the weekend. It's interesting
when I can, because now there's not enough time.
hold that thought.
Okay.
We're going to come back. We're going to come back to that in a second.
Okay.
Because I want to talk about the archetype of the fool.
Okay. Yeah, please.
So the archetype of the fool, well, actually the role of the fool, right? Back during, European days when a jester would be there, the court jester, the fool, would be there for a reason to remind the king and the queen of their humanity. Mm-hmm. In other words, not to take themselves too serious. That all this pomp and circumstance is, you have to be able to laugh at yourself.
Yeah.
That in the Native American, the fool would be the contrary. That's the opposite of, and they were considered holy, and they were considered sacred beings that would be instrumental to the tribe, to the group, because that they reminded us of the things that we think to take serious. Mm-hmm. We are being foolish,
right?
Because it takes us away from the things
that are important,
mm-hmm, and sacred.
And sacred.
The sacred spaces are this space.
Okay.
The sacred space are watching your boys play Legos with their Matchbox cars. Those are the sacred spaces. That's some of the silliness that we get busy doing is foolish.
Yeah.
In a life-taking way. If we can be foolish in a healthy way, in a life-giving way, is that in the midst of everything, I can be present.
And I can still find joy.
Yes.
Even though I'm in pain.
Yeah. So we have this thing going on in our community, nationally, internationally right now, with the coronavirus, and it is forcing the communities to be disrupted. School closings, entertainment and sports activities canceled. In bars and restaurants can't dine in right now. It's being disruptive.
Right.
But in that disruption, you're giving us a guide. That maybe in the stillness, in the simplicity of sitting down and playing Matchbox cars.
Or just living, or just staring at the sun, or listening to the birds, or,
if we're not quarantined to our homes, we're encouraged not to go out in public.
Right.
So that means we can go out for walks.
Yeah.
That means we can still go out to the parks, and we just don't, need to still be keeping space.
Social distance.
Distance, but that doesn't mean that we can't be with the trees. Mm-hmm. Right? So when you think of, one of the gifts that you've gotten from cancer is the idea of stillness, being in the moment, recognizing that we all have just this moment. Mm-hmm. It's just that right now you may have the opportunity not to take it for granted like some of us would.
Exactly.
And maybe that's what's happening from a community standpoint too.
I hope so.
Is that the things that we've taken for granted, our neighbors that are across
our friends,
state or country or whatever, that we have a social responsibility, mm-hmm. right, of doing what we can to protect ourselves, protect our community, right? For you, what other gifts would you say that have come from the cancer?
What other gifts?
Going, not the cancer itself, but going through what you've gone through that you wouldn't have realized if you wouldn't have gone through it. So, again, the idea of what may be other lessons that you having going through this experience right now, of having cancer, mm-hmm. and then also reflecting on just all the different things that you've been involved in life, and the things that 5 years ago that were so important, right? And now you can maybe see with a different level of clarity. Yeah.
So I guess it's a really difficult question, but I feel like it comes down to love in action. The community has responded to me in love and often asks for updates. Yeah. Not officially, but I have been tracking my progress through Facebook and Instagram. And when I don't post something, I'll start to get lots of messages and asking how I'm doing and so forth. So it's responding to those calls for love. And it's also, I've been doing community work. I've been trying to make my community a better place because that's love in action.
Yeah.
And it's related.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize, I think that it was related, that, you know, in the end, all there is really is love. And in the end, what's important in life are the relationships that you make.
Yeah.
That's what's really important.
Yeah.
So if we can enhance our lives by connecting people through that act in different ways towards social justice, and if we can act in ways that connect people to a better community and continuously improve, that's the key. It's love in action.
Yeah. Yeah. I think in that order, right?
Yeah.
You know, I think in the midst of fear, regardless if it's the fear of, I don't know what I'm going to do when you are a senior in high school or a senior in college in this transition, or a fear of what's going to happen because I get a diagnosis of fill in the blank, or a fear of, you know, someone has told me I can't do something that I normally
and I guess that's taking a step back and realizing what your strengths really are, what your gifts really are, and connecting to the people that love you. Yeah.
And then going to that source of love, right? That a lot of this stuff, other things may not matter because love is infinite. Love, and that's what I was referring to earlier, is in this idea that this love is infinite. It's not just limited to this dimension. It's not just limited to this time.
Right.
And so, but at the same time, there's times when we have to take action because things need to be corrected. Things need to be done differently. So it is, I think that's huge, this idea of love and action, or love and stillness, so that we know what action to take. Right?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
You know?
Yeah. I don't know. I still think it's a choice. So it's always an action.
Oh, to choose stillness is an action, right? Yeah, very much so. And then maybe then we'll be able to know what to say yes to, what to say no to.
Or maybe I'm still evolving.
Oh, you're still evolving. You're still evolving.
Yeah.
It was by no accident that I think at this time period, right, that the card that got flipped for you was that, and that was not. I don't see it as a negative thing.
No, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's the contrary.
Yeah.
It's to what's that song by? That's a country singer, Tim McGraw.
Okay. Something before I die, or something like live like you were dying.
Yeah, live like you're dying.
Yeah.
If we actually, not from a suicidal standpoint, but from an embracing life standpoint, we might be able to discern what's important.
Yes. Very much so.
Yeah. So, Alicia, thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you.
And as time evolves, if there is something that you want to come back on and talk again, we can definitely do that.
Okay.
And because your story is exactly the story that our audience wants to hear about, not only transforming our community, but transforming ourselves as we have obstacles in our path. What are we learning from it? Not minimizing the difficulty and the struggle of it.
Right. What are we learning? Yeah.
But what are we learning? How are we growing? How are we transforming from it?
How are we reacting? Yeah.
So, thank you. Thank you. You had an opportunity to listen to Alicia Neubauer talk about her journey and talk about her story, and knowing who she is, not just a woman of strength and of someone who wants to make a difference in her community, but someone who through some of her obstacles recognized that love and action are some of our greatest gifts and greatest choices. Look forward to being with you next week.